Hello and welcome, and I hope you're all doing well. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you the top 10 most superior Ark tames. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. In at number 10, we have got ourselves the Spinosaurus, and I'm putting this thing here as in every way to me, this creature does seem superior to the Rex. Maybe not in the health department, but everything else does summarize this creature as being superior to me. These things, although they do not spawn as regularly as the Rex, they have significantly higher mobility and can output a lot more damage, especially once influenced with that hydration buff. It really ends up making a huge difference, and it is something which you should definitely be considering, especially if you're doing the Moda boss fight. I know it's a bit more of an obscure thing, but still that does come into a factor, especially on Gen 1, but also just generally for underwater caving. If you're doing that, or underwater exploration, you're going to encounter some enemies which you're going to want to kill, and this can do it extremely effectively. Also, just on top of this as well, I find it just does better in bosses because of the better mobility that this thing has. It can just dodge more, and it gets around the boss arenas a lot more easily, especially when you go into the tech cave. It really can be a pain to bring Rexes down there, as they are some of the most stupid creatures in the game outright. Also, on top of this as well, they can go onto their hind legs and deal even more damage, which is great, and they can do 360 turns on the spot, so they've got the turning circle of an absolute god, which really does make these creatures such a nice one to have. And I think stop using Rexes and use these things. I know it's a bit of a general term, but I find these things are better, and as long as you can find some high level ones and breed them up, you're really going to have a good time with these things. Next up, we have got ourselves the Mantis, and this creature is here is it is just the superior gatherer of any resource. Like, you can just get tons of stuff with this, and I know the Anki and the Dodic really are great gatherers, and you should definitely use them. I just find when you combine them all into one with the Mantis, I have a better time with it. Your opinions obviously may differ, and feel free to comment below your thoughts on these creatures, and if you think that you would go differently on this list. But for me, the Mantis is the way to go for resource gathering. I'll transfer it onto other maps if it doesn't actually natively spawn on it, especially if I'm ever playing on the island, because most of my friends like to dwell on that map. It is just so nice. You can equip any melee weapon to these things. They are also really fast. This has had some extra movement speed put on it. It's quite significant actually, so it's not this speed by default, but you can really get some ripping fast ones, and if you put some good weapons on them, they can deal a heck of a lot of damage as well. And actually, if you're on Scorched Earth, they're not a bad idea of boss creature for the Manticore, although I would find that maybe you could use some other creatures like Rexes or Aloes or things like that, but I'm actually not too sure of what spawns on the map because I haven't done a whole lot of Scorched Earth playing. But yes, the Mantis is a harvesting god, and to me, it's one of those superior Ark tames. Continuing on our list, we have got ourselves the Argentavis, and it's pretty obvious why this creature is here. Come on, you've got the Giga, that thing has been in the game since 2015, and now you've got this thing, and it is essentially the Giga but better in every single way. The only real downsides I can think of is the taming method can be a little bit of a drag, especially if it bugs, and they don't necessarily deal more damage than the Giga until you've actually got that blood rage up to its fullest, which actually really is not too difficult of a thing to do, and in combat you're just going to keep dealing tons and tons of damage with these creatures. And obviously they have tons more health, not necessarily just because they have a much higher health stats, but because they no longer have the rage meter, which is something which you'll find on the Giga. Essentially now you just have your full health instead of kind of a percentage of your health, if you will. And also their stamina isn't atrocious as well. You did just see me level all of the levels into stamina, by the way. That wasn't just your eyes faking you. Wouldn't recommend doing it, but I was just generally showcasing the stamina actually doesn't level too bad on these things. But probably if you're really worried about this, just get a stamina mutation once you breed them. Don't do it. You'll want to be leveling up melee and health just as a general thing instead. That's the way to go with these things, but they really are a huge upgrade to the Giga, and that's why they have to be on the list. In at the number 7 spot, we've got the Argentavis, and I know everyone out there is going to love their Pteranodons, and I know it does kind of serve a little bit of a different purpose. This is why I'm putting it further back on the list and not right to the front of it, but personally I think the RG is just a much better creature all round than the Pteranodon. Again, I know they have different uses. I'm not just necessarily saying like this is objectively better for everything than a Pteranodon, but broadly I would say it is. Although yes, the speed isn't there, their stamina and weight is so much higher, you never have to worry about stopping every single 5 seconds just to regen that stamina. Also on top of this as well, with the high weight, you can actually carry some stuff, especially metal, crystal and obsidian, considering the weight reduction they have on them, and also they can pick up a wider range of creatures too, and even creatures in their mouth. You've got 2 creatures at once that you can do. On top of this, their saddle does act as a smithy, making them ideal creatures for caving, especially because of those pesky arthropleuras. You won't go into caves with these creatures, of course, but still, with one of these things, you can, once you've got out of your cave, repair all of your gear if you're going off to the next one, because I usually like to do more than one cave in one go. That might be a controversial opinion, but I don't like to go back to my base after every single cave. I'll do more than one cave. That might not be a thing you do, that's a thing I do, and I find it really useful there. And they also have a nice regen buff as well when you kill something and you eat it. Honestly, it gets you out of so many bad situations you wouldn't realise how much you actually use it, but that's why the RG's here. So now we have the Crystal Wyvern, and I think this is just a hugely upgraded version of the Wyvern, and maybe it's not the biggest difference, so possibly hugely isn't the best word to use there, but I would say it's enough of an upgrade to really make a difference, and that mainly does come with ease of taming. These things are far easier than the Wyvern to tame. No more going into Wyvern trenches and waiting for things to raise up. You simply have to get to level 60, then knock out a Crystal Wyvern to get the Primal Crystal, and then just sit around for a little bit and get that passive tame done through, and then you've got yourself a Crystal Wyvern. I've heard a lot of you out there have been really enjoying the Ember Crystal Wyverns, and they're your all-time favourite. For me, it's the Blood Crystal Wyverns. They're just cool, and their ability just generally is really useful for me. This is a Tropical Crystal Wyvern, if you didn't know already, and it shoots water out of its mouth. And you might think, well, just the normal Wyverns are going to be stronger, right? Well, actually, they're pretty much on par, and I don't really think there's that much difference. It really just come down to what elemental ability you prefer best, but considering how much easier these things are to tame, they are just better, and they are on another level to me. Obviously, they still kind of have some of the same ergonomic issues, like the really awful turning circle, but they're such a fast, great creature to have, and you can actually get them pretty early on because note runs aren't that hard to do, and actually knocking out one of these things isn't the hardest thing in the world, and you kind of have to do the same for Wyvern milk anyway, so it's not really a big stretch when in terms of what you kind of have to do, although the other bit is a lot easier. Now, I know I love to support the Baryonyx end to end, but I do kind of have to admit that the Shadowmane is just a better all-round creature, apart from its limited accessibility compared to the Baryonyx, considering that it spawns not on the island, but I'm pretty sure it spawns on Fjorda. I might have got that wrong, but if it does, then it is still reasonably accessible. It's not really a strong point for this thing. It is just the better tame. It has a lot more mobility, it also has the pack buff, it has the hydration buff, it's fast, agile, it can swim in the water really fast and effectively. It is a great caving creature. It is the perfect size for it, but I would also say that this is an upgrade to something like the Thyla, and also on top of that, I'm just trying to get the creature out of my head and I can't for some reason. There we go. It's better than the Thyla, better than the Baryonyx in my opinion. They're the creatures that I think it kind of replaces a lot more, because yes, although it can't climb and all of that, it still can jump to insane heights. It really has it has a lot going for it, and that obviously that's why this creature has to be in at the number 5 spot. So continuing on, we have got ourselves the Desmodus. This is kind of the superior glider for me. I know they've all kind of got different abilities, like the Griffin, just something different to the Snow Owl, to the Desmodus, but I find out of everything, the Desmodus is the more useful one to me. The Sanguine Elixir is an absolute cheat for tames, and I absolutely love taming, so it would make sense why this is definitely a favourite of mine. Also, I like the Bloodstalker a lot, and the tame method is very similar, and that is a nice thing for me to have and see. It just makes me like the creature more, and their gliding does feel very fluid and generally nice. I don't know what it is, there's some kind of placebo possibly, but as I go further on the list of flyers, I just feel like they control better, and this thing really does control amazingly. They can also go invisible at night time, but because the wasteland biome never actually goes to night, I couldn't show you this in the B-roll. I should really probably change this at some point so I can actually show off all of its features. It's a bit of negligence of what biome I actually recorded it in, but yeah, really great creatures. And also, if you're a PvP player, you can pick riders off mounts with ease with these things. In at number 3, we have got ourselves the Maywing, and you could kind of say the Gigantoraptor does a similar job to this thing, and largely it does, although it does something slightly different, but it still can carry creatures in its saddle exactly like the Maywing. I find the Maywing is still the better creature for me. It is fast, agile, so easy to tame, and just generally, like, come on, it's the Maywing, especially considering they're insanely fast traveling. Like, they are the go-to travel mount out there in Ark by far. They really do deserve the number 3 spot on the list. They're so amazing, and although there is a little bit of a learning curve in actually flying on these things, as in the beginning, you'll find maybe they aren't the most ergonomic. Once you get used to it, you really are going to enjoy flying these creatures. It is an absolute dream to have one of these things, trust me, and you can get them about the same time that you'd be getting a raptor, so it's honestly so OP considering everything. And obviously you can use them as a portable feeding trough as well. They can carry babies, they can steal enemy baby creatures as well, and you can gather berries with them, skim across the top of the water with them. They really are great, just general all-rounders, but they're mainly excelling in the traveling aspect. Possibly controversially, I'm putting the Bloodstalker in at number 2, and there's one use for this creature which I absolutely love, and this is why I have to put it in at the number 2 spot. Personally, just ever since I was really young, I've loved the water, and this, in my opinion, is the best underwater creature out there. Just nothing can compete with that. I know the Basilow is a great one out there because it's immune to all the jellyfish and electric eels, but I find this creature is just so fast and so zippy underwater, and especially considering you can see all the aggros of all the creatures, it's really hard to get yourself into a very dangerous situation that you easily can't get out of, which, you know, it's a really nice kind of fail safe, and you can pretty much evade the danger before it even got you, as you can very clearly see all the stuff under the water, because it's not actually the clearest environment out there unless obviously you enable some mods, and it does have a lot of merit for being a traveling mount as well. Not as great as the Maywing, that definitely does excel more in that spot, but for that insane water traveling ability, I really do have to put it in at this spot, because I feel like people undervalue it for this, and it still does have the traveling thing going for it. Also, just as a general thing, it has quite a nice superior taming method in a way, you could say, because it's so inventive, it's so nice, and maybe, although not the most friendly from the beginning, I like a little bit of a challenge in that. It makes me feel like I'm working harder for a creature that I really do love so much, so that is why I'm putting this creature in at the number 2 spot. And finally, in at number 1, I've got myself the Deinonychus, because this creature to me is just the superior of superior creatures, and I know things like the Reaper and Rock Drake and rock golems and titanosaurs and gigas and all of those things, they all exist, and although some of them I've mentioned on this list with a better replacement, I find that yes, maybe there are some creatures that I've missed on this list, but to me the Deinonychus is always solidly in at the number 1 spot when talking about the most superior creatures. It's so small, agile, and very easy to tame. You essentially just go up to their nest and you raise the egg, and you can get out relatively easily if you have a grappling hook or some kind of flyer. You get these things between level 30 and level 40. That's around the time that I'd be getting these things anyway. And once you assemble a pack of these things, you really can dominate the maps. They just deal insane amounts of damage, and can deal bleed damage to bosses as well, and grapple onto them, do all kinds of stuff to them, and it really is just so OP. They are a huge upgrade to something like the Thyla. Yes, the Thyla does deserve a lot of respect, but these things are just better. They climb as well like the Thyla, although the Shadowmane can't do that, which is why personally I'm also putting these things above the Shadowmane as well. Obviously that creature was only in at the number 5 spot. They can just do everything apart from the underwater thing that the Shadowmane can do, but apart from that, everything else, they are better boss creatures in my opinion than something like the Shadowmane. insane. They've got that pack buff, they can deal heavy amounts of bleed damage, which definitely does outweigh the hydration buff. They really are the top superior creature to me. The top 10 most legendary Ark tames. In at number 10, we have got ourselves the Crystal Wyvern, and this creature is here simply because, come on, it's the Crystal Wyvern. Compared to the normal Wyvern, I find it is just a much better creature, and it is so much better for me that I have to put it on the legendary creatures list. It's kind of a marvel, a miracle, if you will, that this creature is actually in the game. A Wyvern, and even a better version of the Wyvern that is significantly easier to tame than the normal Wyvern, and also just generally a lot less hassle on servers, as a lot less people tend to be on Crystal Isles than maps like Ragnarok. Ragnarok is actually the most popular Ark map out there, at least I'm still confident it is. I'm not sure where Fjorda is at, but I'm pretty sure Ragnarok is still the king. Also, on top of that, you might be saying, well, Wyvern spawn on Scorched Earth. Well, they're really just a pain on that map. Whereas on Crystal Isles with the Crystal Wyverns, you can simply just get the Primal Crystal, you knock out one of these things, and you can get the Primal Crystal from them, and then it'd be level 60, passive tame them, and boom, there you go. The personal favourite of mine is the Blood Crystal Wyvern. I just really like the abilities that it has. This is the Tropical Crystal Wyvern, but a lot of you out there in the comments below have been saying you really love the Ember Crystal Wyverns, and they definitely are a really good one as well. And if you've never tried out Crystal Wyvern before, if you're anti-Crystal Wyvern as well, really try one out for yourself. And if you've tried them loads and then you still hate them, then that is the only excusable excuse for not liking these things. Continuing on, we have got ourselves the Snow Owl. This creature can be found all across Extinction, and I think it can also be found on Fjorda as well, and it really is one of those gold stars. It gets a gold star from me, if you will. This creature is just so great in its density of abilities and its just general use. Like, PvP players can use this thing, PvE players can use it. It's not very one-sided. It's so versatile in all of its features. Namely, it is a glider, which means you can really rack up some serious speed with this thing. It does definitely help. Yes, Managamas have a lot of speed on them, but still you can actually gather quite a significant amount of it with a creature like this. You're not really missing out too much. They can't quite get to the same speeds, but still there's a lot more control I find in a creature like this, at least at my current skill level with flying Managamas. They also do kind of have a UV heat seeking. It's not UV, is it? It's infrared. It would be for heat. Either way, they have a infrared heat seeking ability where they can see heat coming off of any organism, and I'm not sure if just general hot things like lava show as well, but that should just be pretty obvious anyway. You can kind of use it like a night vision camera as well. Also, if you level up down on these things, not only can they fly longer distances, but you can also heal up creatures with them, which again is just going to make these things really nice to use. It is ideal to have a creature that can heal others in this way. Like, yes, the Daedon does definitely do a good job at healing creatures, but I find the Snow Owl just has it better. And also with Snow Owl pellets being useful for gadgets as well to get some insane loot out of them, they really are so versatile, and you should definitely use one of these things at some point, considering just how easy they are to tame. So, a fan favourite of many at the moment, and obviously just ever since release. It's not really a trend thing. This has always been at the top of many lists ever since it was launched. I'm not actually sure when. It's a 2023 creature. It released some point in that time. I think later on in the year, but it could have been earlier on as well. Again, my mind is really not the most up to date with things like this. Time goes by so fast, doesn't it, really? And you look back at all these things, you're like, actually, when was that? Either way, the Argentavis can be found on the island and also the Lost Island, and I find on normal Ark these creatures are quite rare, whereas on ASA they're a lot more abundant. I don't know what it is. Is it just like how the spawns work, or is it just some kind of placebo where I'm just like, oh yeah, more are definitely spawning, when actually no more are spawning? I haven't really played much ASA anyway, so it's not that I've played more. Either way, looking on it, the Argentavis is an extremely strong tame which you can find in the swamp biome, and it really is going to be extremely useful for that job. Not only because they can deal heavy amounts of damage, but also they can pick up a large range of creatures as well, and on top of it, they're just heavily mobile flyers which are really capable. They're really strong in what they do, and although their tame method is pretty much just a rehashing of the Reaper, it's still a really cool one to walk through. And now with the net gun and things like that, this tame actually does become quite a breeze. It's a lot harder, especially if you go for the 100% effectiveness. I find that not really to be the most useful on a creature like this. That's just my personal preference though, but you know, you might think differently. Comment your thoughts down below. Are you a pro 100% effectiveness on running Argentavis or against it? Because it seems to me a lot more effort than it's worth, and they're really not that difficult to tame anyway. Just get yourself the highest level one that you can find and tame it. Just normally, you don't need the 100% effectiveness. If you have the resources at the time, then just go for it. You might as well. But you know, for me it's not really worth it because they're not really boss creatures, and they still really do pack a punch no matter the effectiveness. But it obviously does matter on the level. Some really low level ones tend to really lack in the health department. In at number 7, we have got ourselves the Argentavis. This creature is here, as for me it is just one of those kings. I can't live in Ark without an Argentavis in the map. Spawns all over the island and really is a popular one among many, including myself. It is so capable of gathering things like metal, crystal and obsidian, especially considering it has weight reduction on them. Obviously it's not going to be doing the gathering, but it's going to be doing all of the heavy lifting and the carrying. Obviously you can pair it with Nanki and a Dodic, and then you can gather all that metal, crystal, obsidian, stone, thatch, wood, even depending on what creatures you're using. So there's a lot of versatility you can get out of a creature like this. Also, people do give them a bit of a bad hit sometimes for their slowness, whereas actually I find they're not the slowest things out there, and especially considering that you've got a very high stamina and very high weight stats, they are a lot nicer to use than something like a Pteranodon, in my opinion. Yes, they're not as fast, but you don't have to take as many breaks, especially if at the time you don't really have a very high level Pteranodon, because you tend to be taming lower level ones as they kind of first flies in the game, but obviously you will get some higher ones later on. But still, even with 150s, I find they're a bit lackluster in the stamina and weight department still, whereas the RGs really aren't, and you can really push with an RG. On top of that as well, their saddle does act as a portable smithy, which is just a really nice addition to have, and also a nice regen buff is gained if you kill something or if you just eat any general dead corpse. Now, I'm sure you all did expect this creature to be on the list, and yes, we have got ourselves the Shadowmane. This is just one of those creatures where it is so improved from something like the Thyla. It kind of seems a little bit mental why you'd still be using those, apart from their climbing ability and also just general accessibility. I'm not saying the Thyla doesn't have any use anymore. You can still definitely use it. It is a great creature. It's not like it's had all of its abilities stripped from it, but there's just less going for it now since this creature's been released. And I know it's been released for a while, but still, you know, the Thyla's been around still for a lot longer than this thing. It is fast, agile, can go invisible, has the hydration buff, deals tons of damage, has natural armor, and no saddle is required. And although the tame methods can be an absolute pain pretty much all of the time, they are really nice to have, and also they're pretty decent underwater as well, which you might not expect, but you also might expect considering their code name in the game is Lionfish Lion. So, you know, they better be good at swimming, and they definitely are. Really great boss creatures as well, and just general all-rounders. They've got the mobility, they've got the damage, they've got really everything going for them in a small carnivore. In at number 5, we have got the Bloodstalker, and I put this creature here as I find it is so useful for doing any kind of like underwater exploration. And I know you can get Megalodons and Mosas and Basilos and all those creatures to be able to explore those underwater environments, but I find with a creature like this is the top tier one out there. I have found nothing better ever since I started using it. Firstly, you can skim over the top of the water, and also once in the water it has an incredible amount of speed, and you can see all the aggros of the creatures nearby as well, so it really does generally benefit you. And I'm not sure if it has the kind of neutral mode as well. I haven't actually used these things within the past week, and my brain is failing me because I've had some other musicy stuff going on, if you were wondering, by the way. Either way, these creatures incredibly great for underwater travel, but also just incredibly great for normal travel as well. They are so ideal for general travel as long as you have some kind of elevation in the area. It's not going to work on just flat plains, but they still do have a decent amount of speed in them walking, although it can be a little bit of a drag, and there's some better creatures out there just for walking across flat plains. You can find some creatures which will vastly excel compared to the Bloodstalker in that asset, but this has other uses. Also on top of that, they actually aren't the worst damage dealers out there. You definitely wouldn't be bringing these things into boss fights. I'm not even sure if they're allowed into boss fights, probably not, considering their like grappling abilities all around, but they're not actually the worst damage dealers, and you can actually, if you get a high level one, deal some pretty decent damage to some enemies. You'd probably be surprised actually. Now, I'm sure you expected the Desmodus to be on this list. Come on, it is the Desmodus after all. Probably my favourite or second favourite glider really, considering what's coming up next on the list, although that one does work slightly differently as it's technically not a flyer, and although this does have the gliding ability, it's still a flyer, but it glides in a way. The next one is just generally a glider. It's not the Rock Drake. The Rock Drake is sadly not on this list. Sorry, it's not a legendary tame for me. I know it's a really great creature, but still, you know, it's not quite for me. Whereas the Desmodus definitely is. You've got Sanguine Elixir. It's an absolute cheat for tames. Obviously, that gliding ability is going to warrant you tons of speed, which is really nice. Then grip onto walls and vertical surfaces, just like a Tapijara. They're much better than a Tapijara, by the way. Much more worth your time as well. The exact same tame method as the Bloodstalker, simply just get some blood bags and they will eat it out of your inventory, and boom, Desmodus. They do also need a saddle as well, but that's fine. Also, you get additional armor with the saddle anyway, so it's usually a good thing to have a saddle than to not. Also, on top of this as well, they can go invisible and pick players off riders too with absolute ease. In at number 3, we have got ourselves the Maywing, and this creature really did have to be here for me. Come on, it is that cute Platypus glider which has an incredible amount of speed and incredible amount of use in the travelling aspects. They really are OP creatures for this, especially considering you can get them around the time that you'd be getting yourself a raptor. They are some of the most OP creatures considering how early on you can get them in the game, and if you have access to them, I implore you, please get yourself some Maywings and start training on them and get good at flying them. They might seem a little bit difficult and a little bit clunky, a little bit quirky at first, but trust me, once you get used to them, you are never going to want to turn back from these things. They are the ideals, and it's actually nice when you just transfer one onto your server in ASA. There's just a lot more that you can do on the island once you've got a Maywing on the map. Just travelling is so much easier. You thought Pteranodon was fast. Look at the Maywing. These things are absolute zoomers across the map. Not on the generation standard though, that's a different thing. Either way, also these things act as a portal feeding trough as well. Just great if you like your breeding. Also, these things can skim across the top of water, and they're pretty good barrier gatherers as well with that cute belly flop of theirs. Really useful, great legendary tames. In at number 2, we've got ourselves the Reaper. This creature has to be here for me. Come on, it's the Reaper. This invented that pretty weird and very innovative and interesting taming method that we all know and love from the Rhino Ganatha. Obviously, it's basically just a reskin of it, but essentially this is the creature that started it, and for me it is so much more legendary. Just taming a Reaper for the first time is probably one of the coolest things that you can do in the game, especially if you do an Operation. Argentavis feels a little bit like a cheese because it's so easy, unless you obviously still do it the normal way, but still it just generally is easier because you've got flyers on that map and you've got gliders and all of those things. I know you have the Rock Drake on Operation, but still you're very limited for travelling creatures on that map, and they're so deep down under in the depths that it really does add a lot of good sense of progression once you actually finally get one of these things. And even once you tame one, or once you're impregnated by a Reaper Queen, you still got to come all the way back up into safety, and it's just such a long endeavour but such a fun one, and I definitely implore you to do it. Once you've got one as well, you can deal tons of damage. You feel on top of the world. These creatures are definitely well worth it. Yes, you've got Gigas and Cockrodonsauruses, and they're legendary in their own way, but not as legendary as the 10 creatures on this list, and certainly not as legendary as the Reaper King. And finally, in at number 1, we've got ourselves the Deinonychus. This always tops the list for me. I don't know what it is about this creature. Well, I do, obviously. It's on here in at number 1 spot, and I'm going to talk about why I love it so much, but it's so interesting how this creature has really gripped me as an Ark player. Firstly, they've got tons of speed and mobility. It's insane actually how much speed you can get on these things, and they take no full damage, which is just really great for me. I know you can just dismount just before you hit the ground, but you lose a little bit of immersion there because obviously you wouldn't really be able to do that in real life. Just the smoothness and fluidity of not having to do that really does benefit you, and you can just absolutely tear creatures to shreds with the bleed ability, especially considering that you can grip onto them and do this as well. You can even do this to bosses, which is insane. You can shred through bosses so quickly, especially considering these things also have the pack buff. They really do have everything going for them, apart from the hydration buff and underwater exploration, but you don't really need that for this creature. So yes, maybe it's not the perfect all-rounder, but there's no creature which really does fill all the assets. While you might say the Shadowmane does a similar thing, it lacks in the bleed ability, and it also does lack a climbing ability, which the Deinonychus has, and it also lacks the no full damage, and on top of that as well, they can't deal the bleed damage, obviously with the bleed ability, which the Deinonychus and the Thyla can, but the Thyla isn't even allowed into bosses, so we're going to outrule that one completely. So yes, the Deinonychus really is the most legendary creature for me. Very easy tames as well, and so worth it. Out of every creature in Ark, this is the one which I will be taming the most.
So thank you to my wonderful patrons Ekaterina Puchkova, Karina Thorne, Dominic Masijewski and Ethan Tapia, who have all supported me through Patreon or through YouTube memberships. If you want to join this list, then go join Patreon or YouTube members, but thanks to all of these guys.